I understood that there were really 3 life skills that I needed for survival in my school years. These are very, very important. The first survival skill was to be able to ride a bike. If you didn't know how to ride a bike by the time you got into public school, there was something seriously wrong with you. This is how you got around all summer long. This is what you spent all your time doing. Even if you were playing sports, you had to know how to ride a bike. The second survival skill was to be able to hide in awkward places so that you could win at the game of hide and seek. It was the ability to squeeze yourself into small locations, hide underneath cars, place yourself in awkward positions in trees, go places that were not humanly possible for a human to go so that you could be the winner of the game of hide and seek. Very, very important because it was a prominent game as a child. The third survival skill that you needed to have was the art of the insults. I know this sounds ridiculous, but when you got into public school, it was the time where you were defining who you were, and one of the ways that you would define who you were was by tearing other people down, and so we would try to insult each other, and you had to learn the fine skill of insulting one another. One of the prominent ways that we would do this was yo mama jokes. Anybody remember yo mama jokes? If you don't like yo mama jokes, just close your ears for the next couple seconds. Jokes like this: yo mama's so ugly that when she watches TV, the channels turn themselves. Yo mama's so ugly that when she goes into the bank, the security cameras are turned off. Yo mama's so ugly that she trick-or-treats by telephone. These jokes were told to insult somebody, to offend somebody. I mean, at the end of the insult, the goal was the person would go, oh, that they would be offended by what you said. That was the whole purpose of it. If you didn't offend them, and they just kind of moved on, you hadn't mastered the art of the insult. The whole goal was to offend somebody. It's interesting how in life that there are moments where we are in conversations where somebody will say something that offends us, but they're not doing it out of an insult. They're not doing it to throw us under the bus, but they simply are communicating something towards us that we find offensive because they are unexpected statements. It's like you're sharing a story with somebody, and you want their feedback, and you're expecting them to respond in a certain way, and all of a sudden they say something that is the complete opposite of what you thought they were going to say, and they're not trying to offend you, but you sit there and go, oh, I wasn't expecting that response. Oh, I don't really like what they said there. You ask somebody, hey, what do you think about my new outfit? You turn to your spouse, go, hey, what do you think about my new outfit that you're so proud of? And your spouse goes, I hate it. They're not trying to offend you. They're just saying something that's unexpected. There are times when we come to Jesus, and as we communicate with Him, we get a response back that's less than what we expected. And the reality is, if we could be completely honest, there are moments that the responses of Jesus actually offend us. As I've read through the New Testament multiple times, I look at the character of Jesus. And many times we have this picture of Jesus as this nice, calm man with long, flowing blonde hair, which is very typical of the Jewish nation, right? This long, flowing, blonde-haired man, very muscular, who has all these kids, just soft, smiling. I think that was part of who he was. But there are moments where that picture doesn't tie into the Jesus we read in the New Testament. These moments where Jesus says things to the crowd, says something to an individual that is so unexpected, we go, what? And it's actually offensive. The first story that we see this in that I want to talk about in this series is found in Matthew chapter 15. And I'm going to ask that you turn there as we look at this sermon called, Well, That Wasn't What I Expected. Matthew chapter 15 says this: Leaving that place, Jesus withdrew to the region of Tyre and Sidon. A Canaanite woman from the vicinity came to him crying out, Lord, Son of David, have mercy on me. My daughter is demon-possessed and suffering terribly. Jesus did not answer a word. If you're taking notes, if you got a pen in your hand, a highlighter, underline that, highlight that, write that down because that's significant. Jesus did not answer a word. So his disciples came to him, and urged him, "Send her away, for she keeps crying out after us." He answered, "I was sent only to the lost sheep of Israel." The woman came and knelt before him. "Lord, help me," she said. He replied, "It's not right to take the children's bread and to toss it to the dogs." "Yes, it is, Lord," she said. "Even the dogs eat the crumbs that fall from their master's table." And then Jesus said to her, "Woman, you have great faith. Your request is granted." And her daughter was healed at that moment. Incredible story about 3 responses from Jesus that really weren't what most of us are expecting from Jesus. 3 responses that I actually think that we get sometimes in our prayers. 3 responses that as we're praying and we're hopeful and we're anticipating these great responses from Jesus, we actually get these responses and we go, well, that wasn't what I was expecting. In fact, Jesus, that's actually a little bit offensive. The first response that we get from Jesus is the silence response. The silence response. This woman is a Canaanite, a Syrophoenician woman. We can read through the Gospels and see other elements of the story. But Jesus has withdrawn from the place that he's been preaching, and he actually wants a break. It's vacation time for Jesus. He's placed himself in a location to kind of hide himself. And this Syrophoenician woman goes after Jesus. She pursues him because her daughter's demon-possessed. Now, friends, we kind of just read that and go, okay, she's got a demon-possessed daughter. But we don't necessarily, maybe you do, but many people don't necessarily think through all the ramifications of this situation with her daughter. Her daughter, some point, will manifest these demonic spirits that are within her. And I don't know if you've ever seen a demon-possessed person, but they're not the kind of person that you want to invite to your house for tea. I mean, these are individuals whose mouths would foam, whose eyes would roll back, who might speak in a different voice. And so one day, her little girl seems to be normal, and then all of a sudden, her little girl turns to her and starts speaking in a deep, deep man's voice, or a deep, deep voice. Eyes roll back and the foam from the mouth, and she's concerned and takes her to the doctor, and the doctor doesn't know what to do. They try all these different kind of medical procedures, nothing, because it's a spiritual condition. This woman knows that her future is dependent upon her daughter getting healed. Because at some point, this lady, most likely, because women married up, the women were younger than the men. At some point, she's likely going to be a widow, if she's not already. She's likely going to be a widow, and she will become dependent upon this daughter and this daughter's husband to be her provision for the future. Have you ever tried to set up a demon-possessed girl with another guy? I mean, take the girl into the market and say to Benjamin the Jew over here, and say, "Hey, I'd like to introduce you to my daughter." And the little girl reaches out her hand. "Hello, how are you?" There's something really, really strange. Your eyes go back, your head goes back. I mean, that's not the kind of thing that you want for your child. The thing I'm praying for Bailey and Brock is I want them to marry a demon-possessed girl. That's the dream for Nobody wants that. I mean, there's no setup there. I mean, there's no chance this woman's ever going to get her daughter married to a man when she's demon-possessed. I mean, there's all the anguish that her daughter is going through. There's all the moments when she doesn't know how to communicate with her daughter. There's all the moments where her daughter's hurting herself. I mean, there's all that. But this isn't just for the season. It's long-term. She knows her daughter's future is completely messed up if she doesn't get healed. And she goes after Jesus, and she pursues him, and she is desperate for Jesus to heal her daughter. And she finally finds Jesus, and as she comes towards Jesus, she starts to ask Jesus to heal her daughter. And what does Jesus do? He goes silent. He goes silent. I don't know about you, but that's not the response I'm thinking about from the compassionate Jesus. I'm not thinking that the loving Savior is going to go silent when there's somebody desperate. I mean, Linda, that doesn't seem like good pastoral care. I mean, that guy needs to go back to pastoral theology. He needs to go back and understand what it means to be a shepherd. You don't go silent when someone comes to you with their deep, deep problems. You see, silence feels like there's a lack of care. You turn to somebody and say, "Hey, I'm really struggling." And they just stand there. Did you hear me? I'm really struggling. Oh, I heard you. Hey, I'm going through a real trial in my life, and I just don't know what to do. Did you hear me? Yeah, I know, I heard you. Hey, I don't know if I don't know what I'm going to do. My relative is facing this thing, and it's just been stressing me out, and I'm overwhelmed. Oh, they fixed the lights here. Silence. Those silence moments. I mean, that's not what you expect from Jesus. Have you ever felt the silence of Jesus? Have you ever prayed to him and you got no response back? You ever prayed again and got no response back? It's Abraham getting the promise of a son and then the silence of God for a number of years. It's the Israelites in Egyptian slavery for 430 years crying out that God would intervene, and he stays silent. There's no response from God. 430 years. You think you've been praying for your situation for a long time. 430 years. It's the hours in the middle of the night where Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are crying out for an answer to the king's dream because they know that if they don't get this, that the king is going to kill all the wise people, including them. The silence, the moments where you're desperate and God doesn't answer. It's those moments. It's the moment between the cross and the resurrection. You ever ask yourself why there had to be this silent season between the cross and the resurrection, where it doesn't even seem like God's at work? These silent moments, these moments where I pray to God, say, God, I need wisdom, silence. And these moments where I say, God, I need you to step into the situation, silence. These moments where I'm crying out to God and I'm saying, hey, I'm a child of the King, and I'm claiming things, and there's this silence from God, and I don't understand it, and I'm actually, I don't know about you, but there's times I'm offended going, God, why aren't you responding to me? Anybody ever been there? Complete silence of God. In these moments, I think to myself, doesn't God care? Doesn't he understand what's going on? Did God stop loving me? But Romans 8:28 says that nothing can separate me from the love of God. That even in these moments of silence, when I feel like his love is so distant, that there's nothing that can separate me from his love. And even though I feel his silence at times, doesn't mean that he's withdrawing his love. So what is it? What is it that I need to do? What do I need to understand about the silent response from God? The best way for me to explain is when I look at human relationships. And I'll talk about Ainsley and I just for a second. There are moments now and then where I will talk to Ainsley and I will share an idea that I have. Share something with her. And I'm waiting for this positive response, like, I'm so excited about this. Or for her to immediately to say, you know, you may want to think about this. And there's these moments, just every now and then these moments where she just goes silent. Where I say, I'll share it, and she'll just go, what? Just silence. What? Come on, tell me what's going on. And then she'll say something like this, are you sure you want to know? Are you sure you want to know? Now, that's a great question. Because if I don't really care about her opinion, I won't pursue it any further. The silence brings me to a place where I have to ask myself, how much do I really care what she thinks? How much do I really care what she wants to say? How much? Because if I don't care, then I'm okay with the silence. But when I truly care about hearing the voice of someone I love, I will pursue further. Say, all right, let me just sit down. Yes, tell me what you think. And then she will start to share her perspective. You see, friends, there are moments that God is silent because he is waiting to see whether or not you'll pursue further. He is waiting to see whether or not you will pursue him in his silence. Because there are people that as soon as they hear the silence of God, they don't care enough. They're not so passionate about God that they're willing to push in. They're willing to pursue him more. They'll just go, you know what? God's not speaking to me, so I'm just going to stop praying. I'm going to just walk away. God's waiting to see whether or not that's where your relationship's at. If you truly care, if you truly want his voice, if you truly are willing to hear from him, you will push in further. Martin Luther said that in those moments when God is silent, he is drawing us into a deeper relationship where we move past merely the outward experiences and the purely rational thinking. where we move beyond the outward experience and the rational thinking, and we go after Him. Friends, I want to suggest to you that there are moments when God is silent, not because He's trying to offend you, not because He's angry with you, because He's just simply wanting you to pursue Him a little bit more. He's wanting you to push in and go deeper. He's wanting you to go a little further. And you say, well, Pastor, how do you know this? Because the response of this woman shows us. When Jesus goes silent, the disciples turn to Jesus and they say, would you send her away because she keeps crying out? He goes silent, and she goes, I need Him so much. Jesus, I don't care that you're silent. I want you. I need you. I need you to perform a miracle. I'm not giving up. You may be silent, but I'm not letting you go. In fact, the word for crying literally means a piercing, unutterable cry of emotion at our backs. The disciples are like, there is this unutterable, piercing cry that's at her back. She just keeps calling out. Well, you're silent. She keeps pursuing. I want to tell you that if God seems silent in your life, He's calling you to pursue Him even further. He's not wanting you to give up. He's asking you to keep pushing in. You keep pushing in, keep going, keep crying out, keep pushing your emotions. Jesus, I need you. You seem silent, but I'm not going to be offended by your response. I'm not going to be offended by your quietness. I'm going after you. This situation you haven't responded to, this situation I haven't heard from you, but I'm going to pray because you are so important to me. I'm not letting go. In His silence, we must pursue. The second response we see from Jesus is the wrong timing response. The wrong timing. The Bible says that she's crying out with anguish. And you think that Jesus would finally, like the word that's used there is this unutterable piercing. I mean, I'm not going to do it because I'll hit some notes that only junior highs can hit. But I mean this screeching, Jesus, screeching after Him. Surely Jesus would respond in a compassionate way at this point. She's showed Him that she wants to go deeper. She's shown Him that she's relying upon Him. She's shown Him that she wants Him, that she's willing to go deeper. And yet, instead of responding and healing her daughter, Jesus says this, I was sent, verse 24, I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. I was only sent to the lost sheep of Israel. He's saying to her, look, lady, I know you have a need, but you got to understand that my season, my time here on earth, I was sent to the Israelites, not to the Gentiles first. He knows the Gentiles will receive from the gospel. In Acts chapter 1, verse 8, he says that the gospel will go forward to all areas in the world, into Jerusalem, Judea, Samaria, and to the uttermost parts of the world. It's in His plan. He knows in the future the gospel will spread beyond the Jewish nation into the Gentile nation. But Jesus is saying at this moment, the timing is not right. Hey, lady, the timing's not right. I'm actually here in this season, in this little 3 years I have to do my ministry. I'm here for Israel first. The priority right now is Israel. The timing is wrong, lady. Like you should come back in a few years when the disciples have been baptized in the Holy Spirit and they're going out and they're proclaiming truth and they're healing people. Come back then with your demon-possessed daughter. Go see Peter at that moment. Everything will be fine, but the timing right now is not good. Seems like an odd response from Jesus. Bad timing. Bad timing. Have you ever been there? You ever been there where Jesus says, not yet? The timing's off. It's not the response I want to hear from Jesus. Jesus, I need this right now. Not yet, Jeff. Not yet. Bad timing. What do you mean bad timing? It's perfect timing for me. That's always a thing, right? We always say it's perfect timing for us. And Jesus sometimes says, no, it's not good timing for Him. It's Abraham walking towards the mount with Isaac, looking for the provision. Where's the ram stuck in the thicket? Where's the alternative sacrifice? This journey up the hill, constantly looking, God saying, no, not yet, not yet. It's Joseph who's been given a dream that he's going to be a great, great leader. And he's all excited, and he's full of spunk. He's like, man, I'm going to lead. And God goes, yeah, not yet. Not yet. What do you mean? You're the one who gave me the dream. You mean you're going to put my dream on hold? You ever been there? God put your dreams on hold? Not yet, not yet, not yet. It's Lazarus. Word gets to Jesus that Lazarus is sick. Jesus, we need you here right away. Our brother's sick, Mary and Martha. Our brother's sick. It's like really bad, like it's terminal. We need you here right now. Yeah, not yet. That's not good timing, Mary and Martha. It's not good timing. There's some other things I got to do. But like, this is one of your best friends, Jesus. He's terminal. Yeah. No, not yet. I'm going to spend a few more days hanging out where I am. And he gets there and Lazarus is dead. Oh, those are not the responses you want from Jesus. It's the Israelites crying out for a Messiah for years upon years. This promised Messiah, and God just keeps going, no, not yet. It's Mary Mary waiting for the baby to come, hoping it comes before the census so she can have the baby at home. And God says, no, not yet. Not yet. Not yet. John chapter 9 tells this story where the disciples and Jesus are in this area ministering, and the disciples see this blind man. And they turn to Jesus and they say, hey, Jesus, can we just ask you a question? We see this man's been born blind. Who sinned? His mom, his dad, or him? It's an interesting question. And I think I rewind the tape back a number of years. This couple give birth to this little boy. They're so excited for this child, and this brand new baby boy, the delight of their lives. And for the first few days, they're holding the baby and they're just looking at the baby, but they can see something strange in his eyes. There's something different about the look on his face. And as he begins to get older, they notice that he's not paying attention to light or the movement of their hands. He just keeps staring off. They're pretty concerned. They keep trying things, trying to move their hands to see if they can get him to move his eyes, but nothing stimulating his perspective, his vision. And they finally take this baby to a doctor, and as the doctor looks over the baby, does a few tests, the doctor looks at mom and dad with this look of despair on his face. I'm sorry, your son's been born blind. If you have a child that's been born blind, let me tell you something. You pray every single day for that child to be healed. That would have been their prayer. Think about this. A man born blind. The moment they find out he's blind, every day they pray, God, please heal our boy. God, please do a miracle. The hope, the anticipation, something. This is impossible. Please heal our boy. And years of praying, the response from God is, it's not my timing. It's not my timing, not yet. Not yet. I don't know how they felt in those seasons. It seemed like the miracle wasn't coming. But God's response was simply, not yet, it's not my timing. And Jesus finally, at this point in the story, in John chapter 9, turns to the disciples and said, it was neither the boy's mother, father, or him that sinned, but this has occurred. This was allowed so that God might be glorified at this moment when the Messiah walked the earth. At this very moment, God's timing was for that moment. All these years of prayer, it wasn't that God was saying no. God was just saying it's not the right timing. Some of you are facing situations where that's what Jesus is saying to you. You think he's saying no, but he's saying it's just not the right timing. It's not the right timing, not yet. And in those moments, we seem so offended because we expect that God would come and we don't understand it. Why didn't God heal the boy years before? Because his timing is so perfect. He knows where the glory is going to be the best. He knows where the greatest impact is going to happen. God is so good that he knows exactly what he's doing. The perfect timing of God. And so what does this girl do? What does this woman do? When Jesus said, hey, it's not good timing for me to heal your daughter. It's incredible. The Bible says that she kneels down and she says, Lord, help me. And there are two things you need to understand about what's happening here in her response to Jesus' response. The first is her physical posture. She has brought herself down, and the word that's used in the Greek is proskuneo. proskuneo, and it means to kiss the ground before somebody superior. It's like coming before a king. She places herself before the king, physically. And then she says, Lord, which is kurios. And that word means the person with absolute ownership and ability over her situation. She postures herself in a place of trust. The one above me is more wise than I am. She says the word Lord, which means you have ownership of my life. I trust you with this situation. Her response is a response of trust, friends. Her physically and her words, it's a response to Jesus says, even though I don't understand your timing, I trust you. And friends, when Jesus says to you, it's not my timing, I want you to know that you've got to posture your response to say to God, I trust you. I trust you. I know it's hard. I know it's difficult. I know it's easier for me to preach than sometimes to live. But when we find ourselves before Jesus and he says, it's not my timing, you need to wait, we've got to posture ourselves and say, I trust you, God. I trust you. I trust you. You have full ownership of my life. You have full ability over my life. I'm just an inferior person. You're the king. I bow before you. I trust you completely with my life. 1924, Dallas Seminary was on the verge of bankruptcy. It had only been founded for a short time. They didn't know what to do, but they had been praying for a season that God would provide finances, but the finances just didn't come. It's incredible how they've been praying and praying and praying, God hadn't provided. This one day, it was the day that the money was due. They had to get the money by 12 o'clock or the creditors would foreclose on their loans. 12 o'clock. And so the president of Dallas Seminary gathered all the founders together in his office. And one of the individuals who was on staff was a guy by the name of Harry Ironside. Many of you have read some of his books or his commentaries. Harry Ironside. And Harry Ironside began to pray in a trusting manner. And he basically said this. He said, Father, you own all the cattle on the 1,000 hills. So could you sell them and give us the money? Like it's just a couple hours before the deadline. And they've been praying, and they've been praying, and been praying, and praying. God says, not my time, not my time. But all of a sudden, Harry Ironside, here they are, just mere hours away from the school closing down. And he goes, I just trust God. I just trust him. I just trust him that his timing is perfect. Everybody's frantic, figuring out what they're going to do with their lives. He just trusts him completely. Hey, God, you own all the cattle on 1,000 hills. Could you sell them and send us the money? As he's praying that prayer, this man walks into the business office, a Texan, dressed up like a cowboy, shirt open, thick accent, comes up to the lady at the business center and says, excuse me, I'm not going to do the Texan accent because they'll probably go into some other ethnicity or something like that or some other accent. I'm just, this thick Texan accent, he says, excuse me, I just sold 2 carloads of cattle for a business deal, but the business deal isn't working. So I just feel I'm supposed to give you the money. And hands the check to the lady. The lady's ecstatic, and she runs to the president's office and hands it to the president. And the president looks over at Harry and said, hey, Harry, God just sold the cattle. Perfect timing. A man just trusted God. And here's my word of life to you. In the midst of the seasons where God seems to offend you with his response that says, it's not my timing, you need to place your trust in him, the one who's perfect in his timing. Friends, I'm telling you, I don't understand why there are moments we pray over and over and over again, and God easily could step in the first hour, but he shows up in the 11th hour. I don't understand, but either I'm going to trust in him or I'm not going to trust in him. I place my confidence fully in him. I see him as my king. I see him as my Lord. He has ownership of my life. And I know the stuff that he takes care of, he looks after because he loves it. You need to trust him when he says, it's not my timing. And so there's the silent response. There's the wrong timing response. And lastly, friends, there's the testing response. I love this part. Verse 26. He turns to this lady and he says, hey, I just want you to know. I just want you to know it's not right for me to take the bread that's meant for the children and give it to the dogs. Give it to the dogs. Can you imagine coming by my office and you have this great need, and I said, I'm sorry, I don't have time for you. My time needs to be towards a certain group in this church, and I don't have time for the dogs. You would start a petition to get me kicked out of here. I can guarantee it, right? You would be so offended. Do you know what the pastor said to me? He called me a dog. He called me a poodle. He called me a schnauzer. I don't know. He called me something. I mean, it's unbelievably offensive. What Jesus is saying, and many of you have heard this before, but Jesus is referring to her being a Gentile. To the Jews, the Gentiles were known as dogs. Jesus actually uses a less derogatory word than just the blunt "you dog." He uses an affectionate word for dog that's almost like a pet. Now that's not known to the Jewish community. They would have just gone, yeah, she's a dog. But to the Gentile community who had pet dogs, who didn't have a problem with the cleanliness of a dog, they would have saw it as a pet. And what Jesus is saying in this moment where he's calling her a dog is, hey, look, you're a Gentile. You're not my priority. I've got to give the food to the Israelites, not to you Gentiles. He calls her a dog and says that she's not his priority. Friends, in my mind, of everything that he's responded to this woman so far in this story, this is the most offensive. To come to Jesus, to be begging because your daughter is desperately in need of a miracle, and he goes silent. Then he says it's not the right timing. And then he tells me that I'm a dog, that I'm inferior to the Israelites, and that I'm not his priority. What's he being mean? No, he was just testing her faith. He was just testing her faith. You see, sometimes Jesus allows all the evidence to point to defeat just to test our faith. You see, the statement he uses is true, that he is there for the Gentile or the Israelites. But he knows, he's God, he knows he's going to heal. He just wants to see how she will respond to what appears to be the last nail in the coffin, the statement of defeat. Lady, look, I tried to be silent. I tried to tell you it wasn't the right timing. But let me just tell you, I'm actually here for the Israelites, not you dog Gentiles. It's the statement of defeat. And there are moments when Jesus will respond to us. And he will let situations occur that make us feel like we're defeated. All the evidence shows that we are not getting our answers to prayer, and he just wants to see how well our faith is going to be lived out. Because it's easy to have faith when everything's going well, but it's not easy when things are going difficult. I stood in my mom's bedroom, and I had tears rolling down my face. I was 18. I had spent week after week after week, every morning getting dressed in nice clothes, putting on dress shoes, dress pants, a tie. I know that surprised you, but a tie, dress shirt, nice sweater, and walking the streets of Oshawa day after day after day looking for a job so that God would allow me to go to Bible college. That which he placed in my heart, the calling upon my life. Did my part day after day. And every day it seemed like I was getting closer to defeat. Every day. I mean, God could have stepped in, but every day it seemed like he was getting me closer to defeat. Then somebody at our church, one of my best friends, his dad was working at GM. He knew how frustrated I had been. This was now months of no job. And he said to me, he says, Jeff, put your name into GM. I knew that if I got a job at GM, that it would be great pay. I knew that I'd have a great job for the rest of my Bible college years. I knew this was the solution, so my faith level rose up, and I believed that God was going to provide me the job at GM. And it was that day that I received a phone call from GM, and the phone call said, I'm sorry, sir, you haven't been hired. This was the moment I was feeling defeated. This was the most offensive response from Jesus. In all my prayers and all my faithfulness, trying to follow through on what he called me to do, to go to Bible college, this was the most defeating moment. Jesus could, listen, friends, he could have given me the job. There's no doubt about it. He had the ability. He could have given me the job. And in that moment, all the evidence pointed to the fact that I wasn't going to get a job, and I wouldn't have the money to get back to Bible college. I had to I had to ask myself, is my faith based upon what I see or based upon what I don't see? Randy Clark says in one of his books that when people come to healing crusades, that often the people who receive the greatest miracles are the ones that wait at the altar right till the very end. And the reason is that they keep pushing in, keep pushing in, and keep pushing in. And when it seems like they are not getting an answer to the prayer where God is sending them on their way, they push in a little further. When all the evidence tells them that defeat is impending, they keep waiting and the miracle comes. And in the moments when Jesus responds to us and it feels like He said something or done something that's defeating, that's the moment that we need to grab hold of faith. Friends, listen, we don't really understand faith in our society. We understand trust, but not faith. See, trust is the evidence of things that are before us. It's the stuff we can see. It's the confidence in what we see. It's that trust in the fact that we know that certain things are before us, things we've seen, things we've heard. Someone says, I promise you that I will buy you a new pair of pants. We have trust that they will because the evidence is right there. But faith is trusting, believing when the evidence isn't there. It's just the confidence that God's just such a good God that even when I'm at the moment of the greatest defeat, I still believe that He can perform the miracle. It's when Lazarus is in the grave and he's already 3 days dead. And all the evidence before my eyes says that Jesus doesn't care. It's in that moment where everything says that I should be defeated and walk away. And I go, no, I'm not going to believe based upon what I see, but based upon what I don't see. Oh, you see, friends, there's an element of Christianity that's called faith that we really struggle with in North America. We want all the answers. We want all the evidence. We want to place our trust in Jesus when we have all the proof before us. But what if He says that the dogs don't get the food? What if He says something to us? What if He allows things to get darker? What if He allows the sickness to proceed even more in our lives? What if He allows our bank account to get lower and lower? What if He allows everything to get darker and darker, that we're at the point of defeat? Are we going to pack it in and move on, or will we say, no matter what I see, I choose to put my faith in the one that I can't see? I choose to put my faith in a God who, despite what I see, He's able to turn this thing around. And friends, this is what the woman does, that when Jesus puts the last response, the testing response to see how she's going to respond to Him, when He says, look, I don't give the food to dogs, I give it to the children. She says in a word of faith, yes, but even the dogs get the crumbs. And picture this. You're sitting at the table. You're the kids. You're the children. You can see the bread being put on the table. You can see the food being put on the table. You have the evidence of what you're going to eat. But there's a little dog underneath the table who can't see above. He's hiding underneath the table. My dog, Otis, he's hiding under the table. And he can't see anything. But he just believes that there's going to be a crumb that will fall off that table, that will land in front of him. And all he needs is a crumb. And this is what the lady says, look, you're right. The food should go to the children. But I'm like a dog underneath the table who have faith, who has faith right now that even if a crumb falls off the table, it's good enough for me. It's good enough for me. She turns to Jesus when He responds in a defeating way, and she says, I have faith beyond what I see. I have faith beyond what I hear. I have faith beyond what all the evidence says. I have faith in something I can't see because I know You're the Messiah. And I want to tell you something this morning, friends. Some of you have gone through some situations and everything in your life says to you that God has declared defeat over your life. And I'm telling you that we're not people of defeat, we're people of faith. We believe that Jesus said if we even had a mustard seed of faith, that we could see a mountain moved. I am tired of living in this culture where everything is so rational, where we explain everything away because of what we can see. I serve a God who can split the waters. I serve a God who can feed the 5,000. I serve a God who allows crumbs to come to a lady. I serve a God who can heal the man in the tomb who's been dead for 3 days. I serve a God who can answer in the middle of the night. I serve a God who can find a coin in the middle of a fish. I serve a God who can raise from the dead 3 days after He's been put in there. You see, that's the God I serve. And my faith isn't based upon what I see with my eyes. My faith isn't based upon what I hear with my ears. And there are moments I struggle with what God says, but I believe that my God can go beyond everything I see, everything I hear, and He can do the miraculous. And listen to this. Oh, it's so good. Jesus is enamored by her faith. He's overwhelmed. And He says, woman, your faith's incredible. Go, your daughter's been healed. It's not the response I'd want to hear. I'd want to hear, oh, lady, look, you really impressed me. You got past the silence. You kept pursuing. When I told you it wasn't my timing, you put your trust in me. And when I gave you the last response to defeat, you had faith. So I'm going to go with your house. I'm going to lay my hands on this girl, and I'm going to breathe life, and she's going to be set free. That's what I would have expected. But no, Jesus doesn't respond the way we think He would. He simply says, go, your daughter is healed. This woman knows. She knows that she's just a Gentile. But she knows that if she could just receive one crumb from the table of Jesus, just one crumb, that's all she needs. She wanted the loaf. She wanted Him to show up. But He just kind of tossed her a crumb and said, go. It's not what you expect, but go, your daughter's healed. And she left that place with the crumb in her hand saying, Jesus has given me something. And when she got home, she went to her daughter's room right away, and her daughter jumped out of bed and said, Mom! And gave her a big hug and said, I love you. And her mom couldn't believe that her daughter was normal because Jesus did what He said He would do. All she needed was a crumb. All she needed was a crumb. Oh, friends, there are times you feel like Jesus is responding in ways that offend you. You're frustrated by His silence. You're frustrated when He says it's not His timing. You're frustrated by some of the things that make you feel like you're at the edge of defeat. I'm telling you to keep pursuing. I'm telling you to get down on your knees and say, I trust you. You're my Lord. I'm telling you that when all the evidence says that it's not going to rain, build yourself an ark, because we believe in a God who does beyond what we see. Place your faith in Him. And when you've done that, all you need to do is grab one crumb from the table of heaven, and God can perform a miracle in your life. God can perform a miracle. You see, friends, I believe with all my heart God's going to begin some incredible miracles in this place. The dream I had 2 weeks ago was about a miracle that He's going to do. And I truly believe He's going to start to do this thing that He showed me in the dream. I'm not going to share it right now until He gives me the right time, but I believe we're going to see miracles in this place. I believe crumbs from the table of heaven are going to fall upon CPC. And some of you have been praying and you feel defeated. You feel like God's been silent. You feel like He's been saying it's not my timing. Some of you have given up on things you've prayed for. You've been to the altar so many times. You go, I'm just tired of doing it. You feel like Israel, 430 years. Just one crumb from the table of God's all you need. Just one crumb from the table of God's all you need. One crumb. I'm asking you to keep going after Him, to pursue, to place your trust and have faith. Friends, would you stand with me this morning? This morning we're going to end in a very unique way. We didn't pray this morning for people at the altar.